for not just a stroll without a care, 'cause I'm going down the road to a brand new place, and I'll get there with a smile on my face. Yeah, so lift me up, I'm moving on, singing and dancing while I play my song.
Welcome, your Backup Plan tribe, to another awesome podcast brought to you by your Backup Plan. And my name is Tina again. If you are new here, welcome to our show. I'm so happy to have you come on. Talking Taboo with Tina, brought to you by your Backup Plan. We focus on real, raw conversations with our listeners about their journey from a life-changing event in their life. I'm an emergency preparedness coach, a best-selling author of In the Blink of an Eye. Yes. Do you remember, Jeannie? It's that quick. That's how fast things happen in life, in the blink of an eye. I'm a financial expert and an app developer of Your Backup Plan app. I'm right here in beautiful Vancouver, BC, just north of Seattle, Washington, and I'd like to welcome all of you to our channel today. I'm super happy to have you here with us today. Those of you who are repeat visitors, welcome and thank you for coming back. And I'd like to, and I always get my hand in the wrong place, but if you could, it's a squiggly hand, like, share, and subscribe down here in the box below. Awesome. I'm so happy to have you guys. And if you were here for a reason. You found us for a reason. So please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We love to have you come on and, get some tips and tricks from all of these beautiful, wonderful guests that we have. I'd like to welcome our United States, Canadian, and German listeners, the top 3 listeners, and the next are Ireland and Italy. I can't believe how you guys are just fighting for 3rd and 4th place all the time. So welcome. Welcome, my German listeners, meine deutsche Freunde sind unserem Podcast willkommen. Wenn Sie gern Kommentare haben, können Sie gern Fragen stellen. Also danke für deine Freundschaft and danke fürs Zuhören, meine deutsche Freunde. So thank you so very, very, very much. What does your Backup Plan app do anyways? That's what I get a lot of questions asked. And it puts your life all into one place in case of any unpredictable circumstance. And it takes that painful aftermath out of the tragedy, whether it's, losing your wallet. That's such a tragedy when you lose your wallet. If anybody listening out there, if you've lost your wallet, it just like sinks into your heart and you get like hair stands up on top of your skin almost, because you just get this adrenaline rush and it's like, oh my gosh, where did my wallet go? Where is it? Did I lose it? Did someone steal it? What was in it? All of these terrible, wonderful questions all at once. And so even as small as that, where we take a picture of what's in your wallet so you know what you can contact, who you can call, what you can cancel, what you can change when the time comes, because crap happens all the time. And one thing we can count on is that we're all going to die. We're here on planet Earth. We born and we will die, unfortunately. We're going to get sick or disabled or have a wildfire or a fire in our house and lose papers, documents, important stuff that we so longed for. Look at the condo collapse in Florida where people lost their homes. People are still collecting items from what fell in that rubble. So prepare for the unexpected. You don't know what's going to happen next. And it won't happen to me because you're Superman is just not the answer, because we're not Superman. And Mike Tyson's famous quote says, everyone has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. Isn't that the truth? Yeah. When we get punched in the mouth, we really see reality hit. And we have our program is coming out with, we're launching very soon, Emerging Blueprint program. which is going to go hand in hand with your backup plan app. And it's going to give you a list of a library of videos of interviews from around the world with attorneys and lawyers, insurance people, small 15-20 minute conversations that you can pick up on, watch by the beach, watch one rainy day in the kitchen, whatever it is, and learn about what you have and what you don't have, and what do I need to get prepared, and why do I need to get that prepared, and really learn to understand what it is that you are doing and why you're doing it. So I'm very, very excited for that. So that's coming up very soon. So I'd like to get this party started with our special guest. You had the perfect plan until God throws you a curveball. That's the title of our show today. And I'm so very excited to have Brigette Gildemaster coming on our show today from Nebraska. There she is.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you, Brigette, for coming on our show. Brigette is coming to you from Nebraska, United States. She is an author, a public speaker, and a blogger. And I'm so very excited to have you come on our show and get into this crazy story that you have for us today.
Yes, yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's a crazy story. I still admit that myself. It's further and further away you get from things, you can still just kind of go, oh yeah, that was me. So I love everything about your podcast and what it represents, because you don't know life, and that is one of the biggest lessons I've learned, is to just kind of go with it, because man.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I know the universe has other plans for you, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yes.
And you're not sure what lessons you have to learn along the way, and how are you going to overcome these obstacles. So where did it all start for you, Brigette?
Yeah, so for me, my punch in the face was that I was in my early 20s, and the man I had been married to for about 3 years came out and said he was a pedophile. So,
told you, or came out in public, or
told me and admitted to the people we were counseling with, my lawyer, all of it. So thankfully it is all documented, and it would take him a lot of money and counseling to ever be able to see his children again. But that will never happen. So it's well, protected that way. But yeah, we had been having marital problems. He had a severe porn addiction, a lot of sexual issues.
Did you know that for a while, or?
I did, actually. I actually knew before we were even married. He told me, and, kind of being the good, naive Christian little girl that I was, is like, well, okay, yeah, he says he's sorry, so.
And Brigette, hey,
go along with that.
The good little Catholic girl or Christian girl is going to say, oh, well, that's okay. I can fix you.
Exactly. Yeah, we think, well, yeah, we'll get married and that'll fix that, or whatever you're told, that narrative, or not even told how to handle it. Like, okay, what does that mean? And what questions should you ask when someone comes to you and says they have that kind of problem? We're not taught any of that. We're not, your response is forgiveness, which is yes, obviously, but there's so much more to it than just that. So, yeah.
So where did it go after that? Did he continue doing, he knew he's doing it and he continued doing it?
Yeah. So, to get down to like really nitty gritty story, he actually, we were 3 weeks into our marriage and he was already having problems with it again. So that's how fast it was, just like immediate problem in our marriage. It never went away. It never, and that was devastating. It was horrible, to be all the feelings you would feel as a new wife, not being loved by your spouse at all. That's not what marriage was at all. And so we dealt with that off and on. And we lost our first baby. And then I got pregnant about 3 months later and carried to term, but he had a heart condition. So that came with its own complications. We were living out in the boonies and had to move to Denver, Colorado, to get to good doctors, because I wasn't going to do the whole deliver, they flight for life your baby, you follow later thing. That wasn't me. Wasn't for me at all. So we packed up and moved, and I was very busy with him and everything, but I juggle life very well. I'm very proud of that, and I can do that. I can be the mom at the hospital and the wife at home and still paying all the bills and buying the groceries and, keeping things all in check. And we were still having all of these problems, and it did come to a point where it just seemed like there was more. It went beyond a porn addiction. It went beyond just this, surface line issue. And so we started going to counseling.
And how did you realize that? Was there feelings or what?
Yeah, just like intuition, and this is something I go off of now, even today, is if you can't and you don't want to stop and talk about something, there's more. If you can't get into your feelings and emotions and have that empathy, and then your actions follow suit with change. At this point, we were going on 2 years of him supposedly wanting to change. And yes, it does take a long time sometimes for bigger addictions and issues, but it wasn't changing at all. It was almost getting worse. He was telling me he was masturbating at work, 3+ times a day, all of this stuff. And it's oh my God, so many things. It wasn't getting any better at all.
Yeah.
And so the way he was treating me, there is
changed.
And I don't even really know how to describe it, but
I think I've heard that it's more from the porn point.
Yeah, it is. The way it rewires their brain is they come across, it's so unloving and not cherishing, I guess would even be a good word.
And respectful.
Yeah, I knew every day when he did it because of how he would treat me at home at night, that night, or when he would come to the hospital or whatever. I always knew he was super dissatisfied, ungrateful, didn't care to see me, I wasn't worthy, basically, all of those feelings. And it took time, obviously, to figure that out, but it didn't take much.
Yeah, because sex is different than love, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And how you have sex, whether you're having sex within love or just a physical impulse. So,
right.
Yeah.
Very different.
Very, yeah. Especially if you've been through that, you would know. And if you've been in a marriage for years, even I've have women who come to me and ask questions. They've been married for 10, 25 years and they know it's not love. They know what they're going through has never been what it should be.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Or something happens where the man starts talking differently about that, right?
Yep. And it all just depends too, for me, I was, like I said, super naive, didn't know what to think of what, but your perception over time, you learn how to figure that out and what that involves, and how they probably have always treated you that way. You just didn't know what love really was either, but you figure it out. You do, and
Yeah.
deep down inside.
But the sex addict is different than a porn addict, right? Did he have both then?
Yeah, for him, I mean, I guess I don't know. I haven't really studied it all that much. Because obviously he didn't want to have sex with me. So, I don't know what he wants, because then he's also into little girls. Obviously, he was, came out and was into my daughter. And so, but what that entails, was that just fantasies? I don't know. As far as I know, he did not hurt her or touch her or do anything to her. He did, for whatever reason, have that line he never crossed. As far as I know. Obviously, I can't say for sure because he was left alone with her. I trusted him. He's my husband. Had no idea something like that would happen. And so, I guess for me, I don't know the difference between those two things as far as what those impulses would look like or what he would want all the time. So,
but he obviously had the combination of the two, right?
yeah. Well, and then he was also a narcissist,
Oh
learned
boy,
again
he had the whole
later,
thing.
of course. And so, which is actually something I did read about, is very common. Most toxic narcissistic people have sexual addictions. So,
Oh.
kind of just goes hand in hand with that too. So, yeah. Which is
So
not surprising.
so you had the 3 children, and that's where it
Yeah,
kind of
so go ahead. Sorry.
it kind of just continued then? Like you were realizing it at some point?
So I was pregnant with my third when we started going to counseling. Would have just been pregnant. And by the time I was 4 to 6 months along, I don't remember exactly, it came out, and I left within the week. So I left with a child who was still had medical needs, a daughter who he had sexual desires towards, and pregnant with my third. Didn't know if it was a boy or a girl yet at the time. She was very shy. Took forever to find out what she was.
Oh, she wanted to surprise you.
Yeah, totally fits her personality. She was being totally stubborn on purpose, I'm sure. Yeah, and then later found out it was a daughter during all of it, like dealing with him. I was trying to hide, obviously, because me versus him, like not gonna go well. All the things, keep my identity secret where I was, while still trying to maintain this life with my son's doctors and what he needed. And he was the breadwinner. Like, I was a stay-at-home mom completely 100% because of my son. And so, dealing with insurance and trying to hide when doctor's appointments were, but yet still making him pay for them, and all these things. So that's when I left, was when it came out, and that was the situation. And so I was a single mom to 2 under 2 and 3
One
under,
on the way.
yeah, they were 3 under 2.5 by the time she was born. So just juggling all of that, and I only left with a very small bank account, what we had, and just I don't really know how I made it work, but providentially, God always provides. I have learned that, like when you're like, I don't know how this is gonna work, but the less you stress about it, and something will come along, So
Right. You have faith
yeah, absolutely.
that it will work out for you.
Mm-hmm. And that didn't come ezy to learn that. It took years.
No.
But definitely much in a more better place of like, well, we'll figure it out now,
Yeah.
And so it's hard. You have to go through those struggles to learn those lessons, like you said earlier,
Yeah. So what did you do when you left? Like, when you hardly have any money and you have a son who needs medical help, and I don't even know where you would start, because you want to hide from him, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really wanted to hide, like I was scared to death. And he turned into this man. I had no idea who he was. And again, it goes back to your perception. I think he was always that way. I just was in my own world, my own thoughts of happily married with children, doing what I thought we were doing. And so hiding from him, trying to get him to keep sending us money, trying to not send us money though too, because I didn't want, at that point I had a lawyer involved, and I didn't want it to look like he was providing either, because I didn't want him to have any custody. I didn't want to play that game. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. I didn't want oversight custody. I didn't want anything. And so, playing those games was super hard. I did try to get a job at one point. I tried to be an overnight aide for elderly.
Yeah.
And thinking,
Like a caregiving kind of?
Yeah. And I was like, thinking this would be great, because I can go to work at night, come home, be with my kids. They're sleeping. It shouldn't be too strenuous of a job.
Yeah.
I got through one shift and was like, never again. I can't.
Oh no.
I can't do this. And part of it was, again, it went back to my son and just being the only person who was responsible for him, because he was very stable at the time, but he was still like, we would monitor his oxygen throughout the night. And, so he wore like a pulse ox where it would just tell you. And generally, most of the time, he was fine. Usually, unless he got a cold or something, something went wrong. But you always kept that monitor on because he was still in that transition stage. And the babysitters I had, the first night I came home, they had taken it off.
Oh, no.
And I about died. I was like, you know nothing about my son. It's one thing for me to do that. If I was like, okay, we got a couple hours left to sleep, I'm going to pull it off. But for them, like, they were like, it wasn't just reading right the whole time, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh my gosh, you call me then. Like, you don't take that off. That's not your call to make. So it was a huge, there were huge bumps in the road like that of just being like, I am everything right now, and there was no way to divvy out tasks. There was no way to, cover any of my bases in any other way. And so at that point, I started living on credit cards and just praying for that divorce to go through as soon as it could,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And doing without and just making ends meet.
Yeah, we really did. We really just watched our finances, only about when we needed to. Another curveball that was thrown in there was right after my youngest was born, or Cinnamon was born. Our apartment had mold in it, like so much mold in it. I've never experienced anything like that. So we ended up having to pack up. And at that point, I did move in with my parents, which worked out really well because he didn't know that, because he had somehow figured out I was in Cheyenne where I was at the time. I don't know how. And so it worked out that I moved, but he thought I was still there. He showed up at my house one time saying, where are you? You're not answering the door. And like calling me 100 times. He even tried to call my dad, like in a fit of rage, and I always go back to that. And that's such a fear in me, is like, well, there was that one time he did do that, like it's nerve-wracking. And so it did work out that, I wasn't living there anymore. I don't know who was living there. I'm sorry. But clearly you weren't home. Thank you. But yeah, and so just, trying to hide and keep all of that. I kind of lost my train of thought. Sorry.
Yeah.
But
so he showed up at the house. He showed up at your location after you moved to the new people.
Yeah, he had showed up there and just, and again, like I had no idea. Like I had no plan for that. Literally mold in my house, which was the biggest headache of my life. I had to throw my mattress out. I had to throw anything that couldn't be cleaned out. It was just covered in mold. It was making us sick when we didn't realize it, and literally saved us from that occurrence with him. I have no idea what would have happened.
How did it go at your parents' house then?
It went really well. I have amazing parents. They're super understanding. They open their home to everyone, and all of that. It went really well. But at the same time, I'm a very independent woman and I needed my own space. So I got a job, I paid off my credit cards, got it stable again. The divorce finally went through. He was required to pay a certain amount of child support now, no custody, nothing. And so at that point I was like, I'm out of here. I gotta go. And so what really is hard too is his parents live about 30 miles from my parents. And so we're in the same community, and that's nerve-wracking because you never know when you're going to bump into them. You never know what they're going to do.
How are they with it? His parents?
I don't know. I don't talk to them. So there was another incident that happened when my son was in the hospital where we cut ties talking to them because they told us, which is just, in hindsight, she knew so much more about his problems than she ever would have dreamed of telling us when we got married, because she told us if we ever moved back to Denver that we would end up on Medicaid, Fritz would end up dying because he wouldn't be getting the care he needed, and that we would get a divorce. So, yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah, it was great. Like, so those were the kind of comments she meant. That was a direct quote on that one. That was the final straw for me. But she made multiple, you can't move back. You can't move there. And he had lived in Denver before, right out of high school. And so I have no idea what he was into. I have no idea what he's doing, all the things. And so she knew more than she ever put off
Right.
knowing.
How long has it been now since you've been, since
I
you left?
Since I left, it'll be 5 years this September.
Oh, nice.
So yeah.
So you must see a big difference now then.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like I said, starting out, you look back and you go, oh yeah, that was me.
It's
So
like, who was that person in that mess?
Yeah, I still deal with a lot. I mean, I still deal with, the trauma, triggers, anxieties, I'm remarried now and expecting, and there's a lot, so much there.
Feelings about that too.
Yeah. Just when you thought you had gotten over things, you haven't. You have to relearn all of that and trust and everything. So yeah, it's as much as it's like way in the past and so much has happened since then, it's still always right there every day.
Right. Because you have this new relationship. So it's always, you're always kind of, it's always on that edge of that feeling.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
That's so hard to get through.
It is really hard. And it's really hard. My spouse is amazing. Like what he puts up with, I would literally look at me and go, well, you're just as crazy as he was. So bye. Because you can't control a panic attack out of the blue. Like I have had panic attacks over the weirdest things. He'll wear a shirt and I'm like, oh my gosh, go change. Like it will send me through the roof for the day. Like I will be on edge all day because of it. Like I have had where I just can't even breathe. I can't talk. I can't. I literally feel like, please admit me now. I need the drugs. You get to that point. And I've learned to deal with it and know my triggers, and herbs are amazing, and
and what to do.
And just keeping calm and lifestyle, knowing it will pass, and all of that. But I feel completely crazy, and I can only imagine what people look at me thinking, because you're doing all the things. But going through those triggers and reliving, it's really rewriting your nervous system is what it is. Like my nervous system is shot, and I've had to recognize that. And I think even a bigger thing, and I want every woman to hear this who's in a relationship, is knowing that we will never really truly heal from what we've been through. So important to recognize that, because you can sit there and think I'm healing, and you're looking for that end goal, end light in sight where nothing will ever bother you ever again, and we'll never see it. And you have to recognize that, otherwise you'll drive yourself insane going, I've been through this, this already happened, or I had X amount of good experience, and then all of a sudden the fifth one is just like, well, why is this coming up again? And it's your nervous system. It's literally been rewired and damaged to a point where we can only do the best we can. We have to know ourselves and slow down and create that lifestyle where we protect ourselves because of what we've been through.
Right.
And recognizing that has been the biggest thing for me. And like creating a lifestyle where we're not crazy busy. We're not your typical American family where we're running everywhere and doing everything and doing, kids are in all the activities or whatever. I very much have to protect my space, and it's for myself. And because if mom's not happy,
for your own mental health.
Yeah. The more I do and the more I push myself, the harder and harder it gets, and I want to be there for my kids. I don't want to be, stressed and, anxious all the time, or I'm a very introverted person. So to know that about myself, I'm going to need a lot of downtime regardless of what we're doing. So then if I'm stressed and stuff, it's horrible. It affects my kids, and it's not good. And so,
especially when you get tired, I find.
Yes. Yeah. The more tired you are, definitely the more things trigger you.
Yeah.
Yeah. You really have to protect your space, and like physical health and all of that has been a game changer for me. Just making sure I'm staying up on my nutrition. I don't really have the daily habits. I think that's hard to do with kids. Yeah. I've tried, and at different times it may work, but it's not reality. I don't think we can.
It's not consistent.
Yeah, I don't think it's real reality. But to
Yeah.
have those certain things you can count on throughout the day that will get you through. It's okay. You're hurt, you're damaged, and that's okay. And you're working through it, and you will. It does get better. It does. I'm not saying there's no hope,
Yeah.
but we do have to protect ourselves to keep getting better, because otherwise it's just going to go downhill really fast.
Right. And it can switch like a
Mhm.
switch.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So when you're going through this type of separation or divorce, I mean, it's on the extreme end of anything regular.
Mhm. Right.
Um, did he beat you too?
No, he never actually physically hurt me. From the outside, even our sexual relationship, he probably would have been considered very respectful and all the things. But like, going back to that, it wasn't loving, it wasn't all the
Right.
things. It was sexual abuse in so many
Right.
ways. Like, I have so many struggles with that now.
And
Um,
it's crazy how we are not aware of the mental abuse and the sexual abuse. And I'm
yeah.
not sure why we aren't.
Yeah. I mean, I know I struggle with that so much because there's such a connection there. And especially if you've been through it or have walked with somebody through it, it's so blatantly obvious. Like, I was actually told by several people I had no right to leave him because he wasn't actually hurting me. And
Wow.
yeah, like, I have no idea what that person's into, because clearly if you can't see what a person has gone through going through this kind of unloving relationship, you have no empathy at all. And I think a lot of it can come from previous generations and what they've been through. They've been through a lot. They've been through world wars. They've been through all these things. And we had a very suck it up kind of American attitude.
Yeah.
And we threw empathy out the window, feelings out the windows. We made fun of it, the way we raised our kids. I'm really into gentle parenting now, of course, which is really hard.
Yeah.
You have those knee jerk reactions, your own childhood wounds, but like, that's how they were raised. And
Yeah.
I really think it comes from past generations and just what they had to deal with. And so we've completely thrown mental health out the window. I think it's part of, you know, mocking God in Christianity, when he is such a God of love and peace and so much emotion in the Bible. Like, I have learned things, about my own faith and religion where I never would have learned before,
Yeah.
because he truly has, there's so much emotions behind everything, clear back to before the fall, even the emotions that Adam and Eve had and stuff. And so I think it's part of throwing that all under the
Mhm.
bus, and what if you're religious, your standard for that. Um
Or
and
what you believe in.
yeah, what you believe in. Yeah, exactly. And I think it's all part of that. Like, there's just kind of been a chain reaction and a cycle that has gone on. So I do like to blame the boomer generation a lot for what we've gone through, but I really feel like these younger generations are going through this stuff and going, why did you go through this like this? What is going on? And we're really, and it's becoming a thing, and we're picking up those pieces, and it'll never be perfect. Our kids will look at us and go, well, that's because mom and dad went through that.
Yeah.
There'll always be these cycles, and I think it's just one of the cycles we're going through. But it's very sad because, I mean, if your mental health is not in place, your physical health is not in place, you're completely like, it knocks everything out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it is really sad that it's not recognized more and made fun of for being recognized. You're one of those,
Exactly.
wishy-washy flu people. So
Yeah. Yeah. Did you always look after finances and
mhm.
all of that stuff with your first husband?
Yeah, I did. I was in charge of everything. So
So that was kind of good for you in the separation phase when you left, because then you could find things. Were you worried that he might have a separate life that you were unaware of, like bank accounts that maybe he had, or
absolutely, there was stuff that came out. I can't prove any of it, obviously, but there was stuff that came out. I had asked him for his time cards, different things like that, and nothing added up. So I can't go into detail about it. I don't remember
Yeah,
much
yeah.
about it, but I had it, and it was like, what is this? He was clocking in and out, all the things, and it just wasn't adding up. And so I absolutely, even to this day, I kind of like the amount of money he sends us, which is court ordered and stuff, but it's like, oh my gosh, how does he make it and still live in Denver, and all these things. I'm like, I don't know. And it worries me. It's like, what is he into,
Yeah. Is he getting help? Like, did he have to go to jail or anything?
No, he didn't, because we can't prove that he actually did anything. He just admits
Okay.
having these thoughts. So, I mean, it literally is just waiting for that day, I think, seeing his name in the headlines. And
Oh, no.
reality, there's nothing they can do because he hasn't actually physically
Been
done it.
caught.
Yeah, he hasn't been caught doing anything. So,
Oh, dear.
but yeah.
So if you had a girlfriend and they were in a situation, whether it was pedophile or sexual addiction or whatever it might be, because there's so many different things, even if you're looking after all the finances or documents or anything like that, what kind of information or tips can you give the listeners for other women or men in the same situation where they know they have to get out of a situation? So how do you find everything?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a pretty well organized person, so I had everything filed and kept track of. And you could never do too much. I do have to say that when trauma hits, you think you'll remember something and you won't. So no, yeah, hearing about like your app and stuff, I'm like, oh, that would have been nice.
Yeah.
Absolutely, because and now that the responsibility slowly falls on you as a single parent too, you have like, how do I get my parents involved in this? All the things. So I was very well organized. So obviously, if you know of an app or any filing system, definitely keep it all together as best you can because you'll need it. You'll always need it. We're still going through things, we're finally got the kids' names changed to Gildemaster a couple of years ago, and I'm still working because
and that's so much work.
Oh my gosh, it's so much work. And then COVID hit, and so all the offices shut down, and everything was all mail in this and do that, and it kind of basically got put on the back burner. It has to get done this year. But like all that paperwork, you always have to have their 3 social security cards. They had to end up getting state IDs on top of that, their birth certificates, their the divorce papers, the name change decree. Like you have to have all of that all the time for everything, every time you go in for something or a copy of it. And it's just, oh my gosh, it is a headache. It is such a hassle. Keeping track of paperwork is a full-time job. It's literally, why I believe in a stay-at-home parent, because
it's enough to do.
Oh, it's enough to drive you insane. So,
were you worried that he had other things that you didn't know?
As far as like bank accounts and stuff?
Yeah, or investments or...
I mean, I thought about it, but I guess it didn't worry me because there's nothing I can do about it. I don't want to have involvement with him. I don't want to depend on him even. Like we try to very much live, if he ever were to decide not to do something at some point, we're capable of taking care of that. Just because he is who he is. He's not to be trusted, and it always comes with strings attached. If he ever offers to pay for something extra or do anything, it's always with strings attached, more communications. He wants pictures of the kids. He wants, whatever. And
something for something.
Yep. And that's the toxicity. It's the narcissism. And, even though I've strictly kept it to only email communication, he pushes all the time, for visitation and this and that. And obviously it's never going to happen, So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think, trying to find sometimes paperwork, I'm only saying that because I've met so many women and I want to empower women and men when they're in a situation like that, to be able to know where all the stuff is.
Mhm.
You know, whether it's, I had a client who didn't even know that he had gone to, well, she knew he went to Thailand for a trip, but
Mm.
she thought it was a business trip. And he ended up having an affair with a Thai woman, bought 2 condos with his business money.
Mhm.
And she, and then they're fighting with the family home and the separation and the divorce on this side of it. And now they have that whole other life over there that he's thinking that he has hidden from her.
Mhm.
So I always tell women, you know, get your crap together. Don't rely on the other person, because you
Yep.
don't know.
Yep.
You don't know what you don't know. And what
Oh,
got me, I guess, when you're lying in bed one day and you have decided, you know, that you're separating or divorcing, and I'm lying in bed thinking, how can you be married one day and be distant, separated, or divorced like the next day or
hmm.
in an hour? Like, like really, mentally, you're
Yeah.
clocked out. Like
Oh
you're
yeah.
not, it's not done in an hour or
Mhm.
overnight paperwork wise, but the relationship is done.
Mhm.
It's incredible.
Oh yeah. The next thing you know, you're changing passwords and bank accounts and drawing out cash, and yeah, literally. And I absolutely agree. And my new husband understands that. Like, you came
Yeah.
into this with trauma. I don't trust you. I'm sorry, but there's certain things I will never do again.
Yeah.
My name change is one of them. I'm not changing my name. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Just little things like that. And they are little, and they mean a lot in our culture, in our society, and maybe not so much anymore, but it depends on how you grew up in the circles you're in. But
Yeah.
little things like that is like, no, I don't know you. You are a complete stranger coming into this. And because, just like my first husband, he was the perfect guy. He grew up in the perfect church. He grew up with the perfect church family. Everybody loves them. I mean, it's split, people who talks to who, we all have to be careful. Well, they still associate with so and so, like you would think, oh my gosh, their son's a pedophile. Like, he's openly admitted this in court. You would think there'd be a line there, but no, they
Yeah.
still associate. He
They
comes from
still
the
take sides.
perfect family. Yeah. And everybody loves them. And, they planted churches and they did all the things. And here we are. You can't trust anyone, and that's such a huge thing to get over, because you still can't live that way. Please don't
No.
live in that kind of fear. But like, and there comes a point where you do have to make that choice, like I did getting remarried, because we broke up and got back together again because of my trust issues. There comes a point where you have to make that choice of, okay, I am choosing you, regardless
Right.
of what comes beyond my boundaries. I'm going to let everything else go and trust you. But there's my lines, that I won't give up certain things, because I don't know. Like, I thought it was going to be all good and great and 50 years down the road last time too. And
Yeah.
here we are. And so, yeah,
Why
having,
do we have to learn the hard way?
right. Yeah. And so, like, there just is that point where it's like, and people change and evolve, like all the things too. Like, you don't know who people are. And so, to always have your hands on something and to make them involved, and because of my trauma, I keep him more involved too than he wants to be. I'm like, no, you need to know this.
Yeah.
you know and he just as soon walk away and trust me, and I'm like, no, you don't want to trust me. We need to both know what's going on. But to like, so to have all your stuff in one place where you can get it, where you can have access to it. Like I said, I had to leave in a week. And I know there's other women out there who have more options than that.
Overnight.
Yeah,
Or
they do. They realize overnight they have to leave, or they have more time, which can almost be worse too, because then they sit there and they think of all the things they have to plan with, like, kids in school activities, graduation, this and that. And it's like, then you have all this time and you don't gather things and you're not actually planning, you just have time. And so to always be ready, and it goes for anything like you've said earlier, whether it's leaving a spouse or a death in the family or anything, to have it all put together in one place where you're like, oh yeah, I know where that is, is awesome.
It's very empowering.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. And like my husband, he's not that way at all. He moved here and he's supposed to change his driver's license, and he couldn't find his social security card or his passport for about 4 or 5 months. So like, who wants to live like that? So once he got it in hand, it's in my hands now and safe. But
yeah, exactly.
But like you can't live like that. Like, at some point you're gonna have to update that driver's license. You're gonna have to even the little things. And so, but then life will throw you those curveballs. It's without a doubt. Even, my husband being a pedophile wasn't enough. I was pregnant. Being pregnant wasn't enough. Within 2 or 3 weeks after that, I had to leave because of mold. It's just, it's a constant life. That's life. And, if crazy things aren't happening to you, you're probably not living the life. You're probably not standing up for your boundaries. You're not standing up for yourself. You're not standing up for your kids. You're not standing up for what is right, because that is what life will bring you.
But sometimes we don't know. Like, do you think he knew before marriage that he had these issues, underlying issues?
Yes, he did. Yeah. There was things that came up. He would told me about other girls he wish he wanted to do things to. That all came out that same week, or in that conversation.
Right.
That week before I left. So.
But you didn't know before marriage, of course. So.
Oh yeah, no. But
he knew. But he knew.
Yeah, I believe he knew, and I know his family knew for sure. There's.
Oh dear.
Yeah, the way they handled it. So. Yeah.
Yeah, is what you're thinking. What kind of thing then can women or men? I mean, you could be in a man situation or a woman situation as well. It's not to just men and women. I mean, these issues are everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
We have low-paying jobs that are addicts, and we have very wealthy, high categorized people in the world that have these addictions as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So what would you say to that person like yourself if you could turn time back and say something to you? Do you think you would have listened?
Like listened as far as like
some good advice that's you could have told yourself, as like if you took yourself out of your body and you're saying to yourself now, looking back and saying, if I had told you this, then would you have listened?
I don't know. It's a very good question. Of course, you always go to all those questions. Like, how did I fall for that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know, because, I've come so far in the last 5 years. I don't even recognize myself half the time. I have to remind myself, well, you thought that way just a couple of years ago. Oh yeah. Yeah. These conversations, like you get all judgy about your intuition, and they're like, well, you didn't have intuition 2 years ago. So it's a very hard thing to say. But had somebody told me, he's going to end up being way more messed up, I think if they had told me during the time when I knew he had a porn addiction, I would have listened. Before that, I'd have been like, oh, okay,
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Yeah, all right. Just because, again, that naiveness, of just not knowing.
Trusting.
Yeah, trusting way too much, and, being in love and thinking what love was. Looking back, I can say without a shadow of a doubt, I don't know how I got past the first date with that man.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was a lot there. Like looking back now, I've been exposed to, learned so much about like the toxicity and narcissism and the energy of other people that I never would have went on a second date with him ever.
So tell the listeners then what you would have noticed on your first date.
Yeah, so I was very young. I was like 19 or 20. But he was.
But you thought you knew everything.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Thought I knew everything. Super boy crazy. Like my goal in life was to get married and have babies. Like I wanted 12 kids, all the things. And so like just to have a guy
You
who
wanted a nice man and a family
yeah.
and kids.
Yeah, who was decent. And so yeah, going on that first date was so awkward. He had no conversation whatsoever. His energy was so withdrawn. I mean, just everything picture perfect of a bad date. It was really bad. And somehow I walked away going, well, he's not horrible. Like I remember walking from the Olive Garden to my car going, well, that was interesting, not what I expected at all, but somehow, then we still kept texting and messaging because we were long distance at the time. And, one thing led to another, and you grow to have that emotional attachment to someone because of the dependency of like getting that next text, getting that next phone call, all the things, during our dating relationship, it was always me pushing to have phone calls or to do things to see each other. I definitely had the excitement of like, this is really cool. Yeah, but it was never reciprocated. And that was my perception. Again, I projected on to him my excitement, and I thought he had it back when in reality, he could have cared less half the time probably,
Yeah.
And he was just doing what, honestly, I mean, he could have just been doing it to cover up everything else. If I get married, it'll hide all this, or,
Yeah. As the flow
Everything.
goes, you make a
Mhm.
story about it, I guess, in his own
Yeah.
head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there wasn't any particular signs, in the first 10 dates of, if you look back now, that you should have seen?
Nothing more than now that I know of like his energy and his reactions to me and, what I want, now. And it's, especially having had redated and gotten
Yeah.
married, like his energy was so negative and toxic and not joyful and,
Happy and
happy and exciting and grateful and all those things, and it's hard to put that into words, but learning to know more about yourself and learning yourself and what you truly want, and not just the picture of what you want, but like being so in love with yourself and the life you want will show you that. It'll show you whether or not somebody is going to fit into your life or not. It'll show you how that clicks.
right.
Lost
But
for
when
words,
you're
right?
but when you're young, I mean,
When you're young and you're not raised with, truly identifying even your own emotions, knowing what empathy is, knowing any of that, I had amazing marriage examples. I still do. And, but it's never a actual, this is what you're feeling. This is what you're going through. This is what empathy is. This is what someone else actually, this is what a good friendship looks like and why. It was always the extreme, of, well, at least they're not like, abusing you like physically. At least they're not doing this, or at least they're not doing that, more end of things. Like we allowed people to walk over us in a lot of ways. I was raised, I would give and I give and I give and I give and I give. So making boundaries for me has been one of the hardest things I've ever done.
Me too.
Still is. I literally have to say, no, you don't understand. This is really big for me. I am saying I can't do this, because we just allowed all of that to happen. And if a friend wasn't, hurting you or being a horrific influence on you, you were friends with them.
Or punching you.
Yeah.
Or smacking you. Or
yeah, if they weren't blatantly being mean, then you still stayed with them. Had nothing to do with that true, pure love and friendship and respect and for another human being. It had nothing to
Right.
do with any of that. And so I had to relearn all that. And so, you know, even though I was young, I think we can teach that in our kids. I know we can, because I'm seeing it in my own children. You know, I fail drastically because I still have my own triggers and upbringing and influences, but at the same time, I see there's a change there. There is a shift. It stopped. It stops with me, this mental mindset. And, you know, we identify our emotions, we talk about it. You know, I literally, you know, to walk through those steps of that is not how we express ourselves. You know, that is not what we mean, you know, and to rewrite that is huge in a young person's life. And
Absolutely.
we're just not shown that, you know, unfortunately.
Yeah, I wish we were taught in school just what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in like a family education class or something,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
when you're in high school or in elementary, like to introduce you to what
Mm-hmm.
people can do to abuse you and what types of abuse there are and what trigger and symptoms and signs. And that would be a great course to
Absolutely.
teach kids
Mm-hmm.
so that they become more aware as they grow into their 20s.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's something that desperately needs to be taught, and it's hard to teach. The thing I think we struggle with is because it takes so much time and energy to teach that. As a parent, it is so much work.
Yeah.
Especially depending on your child. You have a strong-willed child, you know, or a child who deals with anger, or a child who, you know, my kids, like, because of even those 2 years I stayed with him,
Yeah.
have so much trauma. Like, it is
Oh,
unbelievable how young they were and everything, and it's still, we still struggle with things, you know.
and it was like a sponge.
Yeah. And, you know, and so, you know, it takes so much more time to slow down and actually have that conversation of, why are you feeling like this? Why are you frustrated? Why are you, you know, all these things, versus just, we don't behave like that. Stop it, knock it off.
Yeah.
You know? And that's how so many of us were raised.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Or just the backhand went across.
Right. Yeah.
It was not even any words spoken.
Exactly. Yep, exactly. Yep. And even though you may have known, you know, why you got in trouble or all the things, it's still not enough to, you still have your feelings, and your feelings are valid. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to, well, you know, be mad at your brother or sister, but you need to be able to express that in a healthy way. And that's what we're
Right.
not taught, you know? And
That's
then again,
right.
seeing that in other people, you have to be able to reverse that with that empathy of, like, this person is either expressing their emotions and feelings healthy, or they're not.
Yeah.
And that's where that energy comes from. And you'll always feel that, and you'll always know. Like I always say, if you think something is being put off the way it is, it probably is, you know? We're so quick to be told, you know, well, they probably didn't mean it that way, you know, all the
Yeah.
things, you know. If you've got the full picture and you've been friends with this person for years or whatever, you know, all the things, you know what's
more than
going
you
on.
know, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't judge the cashier behind the counter. You don't know what's going on in her life. But, you know, in friendships and relationships and like that, you know how everything is coming across, and there's no denying that energy, because
Exactly.
you're aware. You know, we are intuitive human beings. God did create us that way. So
Yeah, but we don't use it, or it's
no.
blocked sometimes from fear.
Oh yeah.
I found
Mm-hmm.
when you live in fear, it somehow puts a wall up of your ability to be intuitive or understand.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, whatever we've gone through, it's been beaten out of us.
Yeah.
And you have to rebuild that trust and confidence in yourself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of final message would you have for our listeners out there that have a friend maybe dealing with this, or themselves, or you know?
Yeah, my biggest message that I want to get across to all women is to love yourself and to value yourself, and that you are worth it. Standing up for what is right and following through, no matter how crazy it looks, is always going to be the best option for you and everyone around you. Making those boundaries for yourself, for your own mental health, for your own situation, is only going to trickle affect everyone around you. even though it seems selfish, all the things, you are worth being loved. You are valuable, and your story is valuable, and what you're going through is worth it, you know? And so if you're in a toxic relationship, like I said, I was even told I had no reason to leave, you know? And it's so sad that so many women believe that, and they stay for the smallest of things. And like I said, had I known even the little bit I was dealing with, I would have left so much sooner. Again, my kids were only 2 years old, and it affected them drastically. Like, we will be dealing with this for the rest of our lives. This trauma will be with us forever, and we'll be constantly working through it and always getting better, and it'll be great, and it's fine. But like, it's still there, and it's not worth it. And if you're in a toxic relationship of any kind, feeling lost, confused, like life is going in circles and going nowhere, it's time to leave, and it's worth it. It'll seem hard and lonely, and maybe like you don't have all the options, and like your finances aren't in order, and all the things. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. You just need to leave, and it will all fall into place.
That's perfect. I really, 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 really like that, because it's so true. But we think, because we're not physically hit, that these people that are abusing us, we make excuses.
Yep.
And it could be just small hints of things, even bullying. Bullying doesn't have to be just at school.
No.
Bullying can be at home too. And it's all these types of abuse that some are hidden, and that's what I find so difficult for people to understand what they're going through, because you make excuses. Because you have trust and loyalty, and part of it is our religious upbringing.
Yep.
Because we're supposed to forgive and forget, and we're supposed to have empathy, and sometimes I think it's just a little too much.
Yeah, what God doesn't, and this is something I've had to learn, and I learned more recently, actually, which is hard, but God doesn't want you living that life. Like,
no.
He doesn't want us to intentionally be the martyr. Like, yes, we'll be put through trials and tribulations, and life is not easy, but He doesn't want us to choose daily to be with someone who is causing chaos and havoc on one of His children.
And sadness, and
He doesn't.
All of those words.
Yeah, and I will always fully support any woman who just leaves a verbally unloving spouse. Like, there is biblical reason for that. You don't need the excuse of he cheated on you, or he's a pedophile, or he beats you. I'm sorry, what?
Or a excuse of anything.
Yeah. If you are unhappy and it is not God glorifying, if you truly are walking and following and the Holy Spirit is living in you, your actions will follow suit. And that's where you need to go.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that, because we don't talk. It's, talking taboo with Tina. These are taboo subjects that we don't like to talk about.
Absolutely.
And I just think there should be more movies and TV shows about the different types of abuse. So people, when you're in your 20s and you're in the situation, but you don't realize you are, because you're making excuses for the other person constantly. I know I did.
Yep.
And, oh, well, he must have felt like that, or said that, or done that, or because of this, or, because I said this, or blame yourself, or whatever the situation. We just don't see it enough to grasp it.
Yep. Yeah, and that's the thing, and I'm learning that too. If you wouldn't have responded that way, no matter how bad of a day you were having, he is not on your level.
Right.
You need to have somebody who is, at that same energy level as you, at that same value as you, at that same love that you're at, to be responding on the same level as you are.
Right.
And
Because if
anything
it
else,
was a loving relationship, then you wouldn't be arguing and fighting. You would be communicating.
exactly. Yep. You'd slow down and you'd talk about it, and you'd both be opening up drastically. Like there would
Right.
be no silence. You would want so bad for that other, as much as you're sitting there, you want so bad for that other person to understand what you're saying. They want that too.
Yeah. But sometimes they don't if they have other
And that's
things
yep
going on.
exactly.
Right.
Yep.
The problem that I also see, just adding to your last comment, is that I think people should take time if they haven't made an extreme decision to leave.
Mhm.
It's okay to leave and think about it.
Exactly. Yep.
That's okay.
Yep.
Give yourself some time.
Absolutely. I have recommended that to women, and 9 times out of 10 it turns out they leave, and they go from you're going away for a week to the first couple of days, well, I hope he comes back and changes, and over that week's time all hell breaks loose and his true colors really show.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, you're like, yeah, well, I'm not even answering his phone, like the phone now, like his number's blocked, all the things. And it's like you do allow yourself to step away from the situation, allow yourself, like, again, that goes back to how important mental health is, and
Yeah,
sex
you.
is. Yeah. But how much we can be influenced by that. Like for me, he used sex to control me too, because of him not giving it and how he gave it and all of this. And
Right.
so allow yourself to just step away from the situation for a while. Allow yourself to see how confident and capable you are. One of you go away for a while, and absolutely, it doesn't have to be permanent. And
No.
in other ways, it can be the best thing ever for your relationship. If it's truly not toxic and horrible, you do come back together only stronger and better.
Right. No, that's perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. We could talk about this. I mean, it's just so much to talk about with abuse
Absolutely.
and relationships and stuff like that. But I'm looking forward to your book coming out. That'll be exciting.
Yes. I'm collaborating on a book later this year that'll be released. So I'm really excited about that.
That's awesome. And we have Brigitte's information in the description box below of her website and her story. And you can read further, and her blog, because do you do it daily or weekly or?
I at the moment it is on its way. So I have a couple articles yet needed to be posted, but I am blogging. I've blogged for years, but on this particular topic, I'm new. So if you just go to my website or follow my social media, you'll be directed to that once that first article is published. So
cool. Awesome. Well, thank you, Brigitte. Thank you so very much for the time that you've taken to share your crazy story. It's crazy.
Thank you for having me. So
Oh, you're welcome.
I hope it helps someone.
I hope it does too, and that's why I'm here, to help people. Just if we said just that one little thing to make them think.
Yep. Absolutely.
That's my goal. And then I've achieved some sort of karma for helping other people. And that's what I love about what you're doing, and is out there talking about it and helping other people. So thank you.
Yeah, of course.
So please take a moment and subscribe to our channel if you already haven't, because I get my hand out and I always get it wrong. Like, share, and subscribe, and hit that subscribe button so that you can watch more of our special guests that we have on our podcast each and every week. If you are thinking about someone special, I feel that a lot of people watch these shows and do think about that someone special that they care and love about, but they haven't talked to in a while. Please reach out. We still have phones. Call them, Skype them, knock on their door, and tell them how much you love and care about them, because you don't know what tomorrow will bring. Unfortunately, we don't know what in an hour is going to bring us. So stay tuned for our podcasts and our live streams. We have great conversations with some of the most interesting and accomplished people in the world today, just like Brigitte with her Crazy, crazy story. I don't know how you did the 5 years. I really don't know, Bridget. That you're like a superwoman.
No, I don't either, but just one day at a time. Just slow down and take it for what it comes. That's what I've learned.
Isn't that new TV show, The Marvel Woman or something? Marvel?
I am a mom of 3.
That's
I don't
you.
know. I have quit watching movies since 2015. So
Yeah, your life is over.
yeah, I still, being I'm 29 years old, diehard Star Wars fan. I still have yet to see any of the new ones. It's horrible. So that's me and my movie knowledge.
So thank you again to all our listeners. We are on all podcast platforms: YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook, as well as we have a VIP Facebook group that you're welcome with like-minded community, where you can really get in and join the like-minded community on the Facebook group and ask questions about situations and what do I do when and how did that person do it, or can you believe this happened, or that happened to my aunt, what do I do, that kind of thing. So many questions each and every day, so it's so much fun. Thank you for sharing your time with us, because I love each and every one of you, and we always end with Carol Burnett. Do you know who Carol Burnett is, Bridget?
I do, yes.
Awesome.
That's great.
I think she's from Texas. I'm not 100% sure, but I always forget where she's from. But I always end with Carol Burnett because she's just a wonderful, wonderful lady that brought love and happiness and humor to everybody. So I'm so glad we had this time together just to have a laugh or sing a song. Seems we just get started, and before you know it, comes a time we have to say so long. So long, everybody. I was so happy to have each and every one with you today. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Bridget, for coming out.
Yes, thank you for having me, and have a good day.
Awesome. So stay tuned, stay safe, be kind, and expect the unexpected. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.